All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ephraim. Today's date is November 8th, 2022, and I'm saying Shalom, everyone. And for those of you who are new to the channel, Shalom is the ancient greeting of like saying Shalom. Our people, the ancient Israel, spoke Paleo Hebrew or ancient Hebrew. The people that occupy Israel today, they speak a form of something called Yiddish. It's not really Hebrew. It's a kind of Hebrewish, but it's called Yiddish. So when I say Shalom, it's like the ancient way of saying hello or greetings. Okay. Welcome to all my new subscribers. Man, this channel is on fire, man. I'm like, wow. I mean, the subscribers is going through the roof. All praise due to the Most High. If you haven't already, definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell and select all, so you'll be notified every time I upload a new presentation. Because I'm gonna keep hitting it. We're gonna keep at it. Keep liking the videos, and please continue to comment and engage in the video, because that helps the viewership. Okay. I want to thank everybody for their continued support, and people that kind of straggle onto the channel, with an agenda, whatever the case may be. I mean, you're going to get that. But please don't try to lump me in with any so-called Hebrew camp or any so-called black Israelite, because that's not me. I promise you it's not, and I reject that term. Okay, the original Hebrew Israelites are black. I don't have to say I'm a black Hebrew Israelite. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Matter of fact, I don't have to say black in Hebrew. I can just say Israelite, because I reckon my genealogy as a child of Israel. All right, so this lesson, this is very important. I want you all to hit this lesson up. This is a 5-star lesson right here. This is about that Star of David. I got a lot of new subscribers, and I want y'all to hit this lesson up. Okay, is it a Star of David, or is it a Seal of Solomon, or something else? Or actually, it's something else, and I'm going to get into that. Okay, a lot of Israelites all across the world, Africa, they use that symbol. That symbol was adopted by Zionist Jews. Okay, that's a symbol really of Zionism. Not I know people adopted it to try to mean Israelites or Israel, but no, that symbol, Scripture is explicit in that we should stay away from that symbol. Matter of fact, let's go back to Torah. Torah said we should have no images of nothing, period, of him, nothing, and that includes the so-called Star of David. You won't find no Star of David in Torah or Tanakh. You won't find it. Okay, it's not there. So I want you to really definitely hit this lesson up, and I'm going to get to the meat of should we be associating with that star. Is it good? Is it bad? What is it? Right? So let's go ahead and get into it, man. I hope y'all enjoyed the lesson. Until next time, this is Dr. Ephraim signing off, saying Shalom, everyone. I'm going to start with what this so-called Star of David is. And I'm just going to state the obvious for all of you, I'm pretty sure, who already know, but there is no Star of David in Torah. It's debated where that phrase even came from. There's no mention at all about Star of David in Torah. As a matter of fact, the only star of anything is a star of Remphan, or Molech / Moloch, which is a satanic deity. But we'll get into all that. Because it's really kind of fascinating. I mean, you mix in this so-called Star of David with, Zionism and, occultism. When it really is, and when it's all said and done, it's a hexagram. It's a geometric hexagrams, six-sided geometric object or symbol. But we'll get into all of that. So y'all just kind of take this ride with me, man. I'm gonna cover a lot, and I'm not sure exactly how long this presentation is going to be, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I gotta put it all out there. All right, so here we go. Let's go. Let's get it. On this quote unquote Star of David, is it a Star of David, or is it a Star of the Devil? Let's check it out. Now, as the children of Israel, we know by our law, statutes, and commandments in Torah that we are admonished not to make any graven images, right? And we have to also be careful because it might fall right under idolatry, which is also forbidden under the law, statutes, and commandments of Torah for the children of Israel. However, that being said, historically, it's a given, and it's a known thing that there have been plenty of symbols that were adopted, right, to mean something, but not what it originally was supposed to mean, right? So I think it's important to kind of deal with that a little bit, because that's not uncommon. And that's essentially what happened here with the so-called, with the hexagram. I'm gonna stop trying to call it the Star of David. With the hexagram, at some point, someone adopted that symbol to mean or to represent, quote unquote, Jewishness or even Zionism or whatever the case may be, and everyone took to calling it that symbol, that hexagram, the quote unquote Star of David, when there's nothing biblically to support it, right? All right. So given that, we'll go over a few symbols that were adopted throughout history, but didn't take it to mean what it was originally meant to. All right. We're going to start. Let's see here. Give me 1 second, and we're going to do the. There's several here. The first one, yeah, let's go with this one. This is a good one. The international peace symbol. Okay, I guarantee you, majority of you didn't know that symbol, even though it's universally recognized as peace, the peace symbol, the original meaning is quite uncontested and is widely known. However, it's also one of those symbols that was intended to mean something else and came to be associated with something else entirely. However, in this case, the two meanings are not that far apart and can be understood as the same thing. So what is now known as the International Symbol of Peace was originally designed as a campaign logo for the anti-nuclear movement started in the 1950s. And what happened was in 1958, British designer and artist Gerald Houghton was approached by a famous UK peace group, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, which was fighting for world peace and championing to end the race for nuclear weapons. They wanted a visual symbol that could represent their movement and cause. The logo gained immediate stardom and was soon adopted as a universal sign of peace and anti-warfare by activists, organizations, and peace groups all over the world. Presently, it is one of the most widely recognized symbols in the world and adorns banners, t-shirts, logos, and everything else to do with harmony. And I actually use that sign myself. I use it to pretty much mean, shalom or shalom, peace. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, let's see here. Got another one. The anarchy symbol. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it said it's one of the most misunderstood and misinterpreted symbols of modern times. The anarchy symbol is popularly interpreted as a sign of chaos and lawlessness, but the intended meaning of the symbol could not be farthest from it. The sign of anarchy was originally designed by the French journalist and libertarian Pierre-Joseph Proudhon and consists of the capital letter A surrounded by the capital letter O. The A and O stand for anarchy and order. The monogram symbol stands for the phrase, "Society seeks order in anarchy." This is actually new to me, y'all. I've never heard this. Anarchy is a political philosophy just like democracy, monarchy, communism, or liberalism. It is a form of governance that rejects the ideas of central hierarchical authorities in place, but in no way it promotes the absence of law. Rather, it encourages a state of existence where communities can create voluntary institutions, laws, and rules that must be followed to ensure equality and justice for all. However, what anarchy doesn't stand for is a central government where authority is placed into the hands of a few and they can have the power to exercise that authority over everyone else. In that sense, anarchy is a highly individualized concept that believes in equality and freedom for all. Really? Wow. Okay. You say you learn something new every day. I have to Google that symbol of anarchy. I don't think I've ever seen it. I'm not familiar with that at all. I guess we'll do one more before we. Oh, this is a good one. The all-seeing eye. Image source: the Masonic Philosophical Society. The eye of the providence, most popularly known as the all-seeing eye of God, is a symbol containing multiple but similar meanings. From the earliest days of the Christian church, the symbol has meant to represent the ever-watchful eye of God. The three corners of the triangle, representing the Holy Trinity, and the lights emanating from it are the lights of providence, of glory. Going back even further, we see the eye being used in ancient Egypt times to represent the eye of Horus, the sky god, symbol of Freemasons. The all-seeing eye is also part of the Great Seal of the U.S. and is even present on the back of the $1 bill atop a pyramid. What is it doing there? While some conspiracy theorists claim it is a symbol of Freemasons and its presence on the Great Seal as a proof of the power and reach of the secret organization, the truth is less sensational. The all-seeing eye atop the pyramid on the dollar bill is just that, the all-seeing eye of God, as the founding fathers of America were deeply religious men. As far as the symbol's connection with the Freemason goes, the truth is this symbol does not represent the power and ever-watchful Freemasons controlling the world. It means that the organization needs to remain focused on inwards, looking inside and adhering to its strict moral code and ensuring its principles are not imposed on members or the general public. So in short, sorry to burst your conspiracy bubble, but it's a pretty straightforward symbol with rather boring meanings if you're not religious. If you are, well, take comfort in the knowledge that a divine power is always watching over you and protecting you. Okay. All right. Oh, let's do one more. The swastika. Of course, you know, everyone knows who's adopted that. And it says, hardly any symbol on this list is as controversial as the swastika. Yes, I would agree. And it says, since thousands of years ago, the swastika has been revered as an ancient symbol of divinity and spirituality. Wow. It spans over multiple religions, cultures, and heritages: Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism, to name a few. The swastika is a highly stylized symbol and can be drawn in many ways and directions, and for every variation its associative meanings also shift. For example, a clockwise drawn swastika means light and sun in Hinduism, while a counterclockwise one is used to represent dark forces and night. In Buddhism, it represents the footprint of Buddha, and in Jainism, it's a symbol of a spiritual savior. That is like really interesting. Wow. It says, while from the earliest ancient history of human times, the swastika has always been used to represent spiritual power. Its use by the German Nazi Party in 1930 made it a sign of terror and racial supremacy in the modern Western world. It was taken up by the Nazi Party as its official symbol and was used to denote the supremacy of the Aryan race. The Nazi soldiers used to wear it and adorned every asset and representation that had anything to do with Nazi Germany. Unsurprisingly, it quickly became the most feared and hated symbols among the victims of the Nazi Party, and even after liberation, its negative connotations refused to go away. To date, it is associated with sentiments of anti-Semitism and racial intolerance. Prince Harry of the British royal family caused a huge scandal several years ago when he chose to wear a swastika armband in a costume party in 2005. The royal family and the prince himself had to issue an apology in the face of the harsh criticism that ensued. I think it's ironic that the Germans adopted the swastika, basically as a symbol of supremacy, racial hate, and racial supremacy. When Johann Blumenbach is the one who kind of introduced race to the world in terms of, the different types. I think it was 4 or 5 different races, he said, that existed in the world. And, he kind of brought that. Before Johann Blumenbach, there was no kind of idea of race, if you will. But so I think it's ironic that it was a German scientist who kind of introduced race to the world. And of course, the Germans adopted something like the swastika to promote and denote racial quote unquote superiority. All right, so I think that's good. I just kind of wanted to touch on that, in terms of historically, people adopting symbols that didn't originally wasn't originally supposed to mean something, but they adopted it to mean something else. So that's a given, and I think that's pretty much the case with the so-called Star of David, which is essentially just a hexagram, and we're going to get into that next. Okay, before we dive into what this hexagram is or what it was originally meant to mean, I wanted to make sure I shout out where I got the last segment from, where I was reading with the symbols and their origins and original meanings. Came from a blog. It's entitled World's Most Famous Symbols and Their Unknown Stories, and the author is Miss Raquel Adams, September 3rd, 2020. All right, I want to make sure I did that. All right, so here we are. That so-called Shield of David, or the so-called Star of David, it's a hexagram. All right, and as we can see here, the six sides of the hexagram represents the four elements, right? Or unity of all the elements: fire, water, earth, air, male and female. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's your hexagram, folks. Now we're about to get into how it went from this to, the so-called Star and Shield of David, whereas the Torah references it as the Star of Remphan, / Molech and Moloch, which is essentially the same thing. We're going to see what the distinction is between the two, Molech and Moloch. We're going to get into that as well, so let us continue. Okay, so obviously one of the first thoughts you would have is this Star of the David in the Bible? In other words, where does the authorization for this Star of David come from? Because we figure it has to come from somewhere, and more than likely it should be in the Bible somewhere, right? So let's read this little article here. It says, is the Star of David in the Bible? The Star of David is generally recognized as a symbol of Judaism. And we know that that's a religion. That has nothing to do with the children of Israel. There's a huge distinction. And the quote-unquote Jewish people. It is made of two equilateral triangles, one pointing down to represent man and the other pointing up to represent God. Interesting, because it's a little offsetting from the hexagram. The hexagram represents man, woman, and the four elements, which makes the six. But anyway, it is thought to be a symbol of the relationship between God, Yahweh, quote unquote, and man, which originated in the nation of Israel. There's no mention of the Star of David in Scripture, and so it cannot be called intrinsically biblical. But neither is the existence of or use of such a symbol inherently anti-biblical. I disagree with that. I actually believe it is anti-biblical, because Scripture explicitly speaks against this so-called Star of David, and it's referred to as the Star of Remphan. We'll get into that in the next segment. The origin of the Star of David symbol varies widely among scholars, historians, and according to various traditions. That's very true. Some say it was the shape of King David's shield. Others say it was the symbol on King Solomon's signet ring. Others say it was first used by Bar Kokhba, a Jewish leader who led a revolt against the Roman Empire in 132 AD. None of these theories are found in the Bible. Again, Torah is our foundation. That's where we get all the authority for everything and all things from. Nor can they be supported by biblical texts. The earliest archaeological example of the Star of David is on a 3rd century tombstone in Tarentum, Italy. Another instance of the symbol is found on the wall of a 6th century synagogue that originally stood within the borders of ancient Israel. The Star of David was not commonly used until it was adopted by Jews in Prague in the 17th century, and eventually by Zionists in the late 1800s. Okay, we get into that. Again, the Star of David was used in Nazi Germany. The symbol was used to mark Jewish ghettos, and it was placed on the clothing of Jews or worn as an armband so that Jews could be identified as such. Eventually, upon the reconstitution of Israel in 1948, of course, when all the European Jews migrated to Israel en masse, the Star of David became the emblem on the Israeli flag, and we know that the Zionists were responsible for that, and we'll get into that in the next segment or two. So, yeah, like I was saying earlier, clearly that hexagram was adopted to mean or to annotate, quote unquote, Jewishness or Jews, but that is not what that symbol was originally meant to mean, and nor is that symbol verified or endorsed in Scripture. So let us continue. Okay, now with respect to the previous segment, all right, we're going to go into what the Bible actually says about this so-called star. All right, let's see here. Get this. Come on. All right. It says then, 1 Kings 11:7 says, then did King Solomon build a high place for Shamash, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And then in Amos 5:26 it says, but ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and shunned your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves. And then lastly in Acts 7:43 it says, ye took the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your God Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. And as you can see, and we're going to, in the next segment, I'm going to go into the difference between, or lack thereof, between Molech and Moloch, because they're both referenced in that way. But as you can see, this Remphan, whose face is in this hexagram, they call that the star of Remphan. So clearly, the Bible tells us that there's no Star of David. This is the star of Remphan and Moloch, which are satanic images, and they're clearly making a distinction between the Most High God and what these images and these deities represent. I won't even call them gods. What these deities represent with this symbol. So the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of Remphan. So we've established that this so-called Star of David, the Bible tells us, is actually the star of Remphan. So you can't be a child of Israel, claim to be a child of Israel, of the Most High God of Israel, and adopt this symbol to mean Israel or Jewish. No. We can't do that. Okay, that goes against our law, statutes, and commandments as the children of Israel. All right, so let's get on to the next segment. Moloch. So, is it Molech or is it Moloch? And is there a difference? Okay, literally and actually, no. Stylistically, yes. In the Masoretic text, the name is Molech, and in the Septuagint, it's Moloch. The earliest mention of Molech is in Leviticus, looks like 28 and 21, where the Israelites are forbidden to sacrifice any of its children to Molech. Similarly, in Leviticus 22 through 5, it is enacted that a man who sacrifices his seed to Molech shall surely he be put to death. The Most High did not play that sacrifice stuff, not at all. It's evil. He was not feeling it. It did not come from him. Because you got to remember, the Israelites got a lot of practices back then from those Canaanites too. They were kind of that possessed the land. They were there in Israel too back then, right? Those Canaanites, man, they was into some stuff. All right. This is then curiously, it is provided that he shall be cut off from the congregation. Okay, it says that in 1 Kings 11:7, it is said that Solomon built a high place for Molech in the mountain that is before Jerusalem. The same passage calls Molech an Ammonite deity. There you go. The Septuagint, as quoted in the New Testament, Acts 7:43 finds a reference to Moloch in Amos verse 26, but this is a doubtful passage. In 2 Kings 23:10, it is stated that one of the practices to which Josiah put a stop by his reform was that sacrificing children to Molech, and that the place where this form of worship had been practiced was at Topeth in the valley of the children of Hinnom. This statement is confirmed by Jeremiah 32:35 from 2 Kings 21:6. It may be inferred that this worship was introduced during the reign of Manasseh. The impression left by an uncritical reading of these passages is that Molech worship, with its rite of child sacrifice, was introduced from Ammon during the 7th century BC. So let's veer off for a quick segment. That whole Solomon thing. Let's build on that for a minute, because many of you know or may not know that Solomon he fell hard. Solomon was into some stuff. He really was. He fell hard from grace with the Most High when he got with those strange wives, and they pulled him away from the Most High. And Solomon was definitely on some stuff. In the Testament of Solomon, which is not canonical. And this authorship is questionable because it was written in Greek, okay? But in the Testament of Solomon, supposedly Solomon was given a ring by the Archangel Gabriel, a signet ring, which actually had the hexagram on it. So that ring was referred to as the seal of Solomon, and supposedly he gave Solomon the power to command demons. All right, Solomon lends the ring to someone who, by throwing the ring at the demon, he stumps it out in the seal and brings him under control. So that whole seal of it's not the seal of David or the shield of David. Solomon is where this whole seal stuff comes from. I don't know how it got to David or whatever, but supposedly the seal of Solomon is where the hexagram was kind of introduced to quote unquote Jewish lore. Rather, it's by an apocryphal book, like I said, the Testament of Solomon, which is not canonical, or something like that. That's kind of where it came from. So I kind of wanted to speak on that because it mentioned it here. Solomon built a high place for Molech because Solomon was tripping. He veered off. He veered way off, man. Like I think I might do a whole lesson on Solomon because Solomon was a trip. But anyway, yeah, that the Testament of Solomon supposedly said that that ring, that seal of Solomon, is where the hexagram was kind of introduced into Jewish lore, if you will. All right, and so the Most High. Let's see here. All right, the name Molech. Later corrupted into Moloch. Of course, it's just stylistically different, but actually the same. He was actually the god of the Canaanites, the original African Hamites who dwelled in the Holy Land called Canaan back then. And there's an intentional mispointing of Melech after the analogy of Bosheth. And as to the rites which the worshippers of Molech performed, it has sometimes been inferred from the phrase "pass through the fire" to Molech that children were made to pass between two lines of fire as a kind of consecration or fibulation. But it is clear in Jeremiah 19:5 that children were killed and sacrificed. The whole point of the offering consisted, therefore, in the fact that it was a human sacrifice, and the Most High, again, he was not feeling that like at all. And he regarded those sacrifices as a sin, as evil. He said you would be cut off. Like, don't bring that mess to him. That did not come from the Most High, But so that's why it speaks about the star of Remphan and Molech, it speaks against it because that's not, none of that is of God. Okay, so don't and apparently people have kind of tried to, over the years, kind of mix up the verses and mix stuff up and get stuff all twisted up in there. But Molech and Moloch is the same deity. It's just spelled differently, and stylistically it's different, but it's the same deity. And the Most High was clear that if you represent that star in any way, that you were anti-Most High, and therefore considered satanic, because that deity is satanic. You just start talking about child worship and sacrificing, kids and all this kind of stuff. I mean, without really going off on a tangent, like, nah, ain't nobody trying to feel all that. Like, what? Right? So, yeah, as a child of Israel, we definitely shouldn't be feeling Molech or Moloch. They're both the same. All right, on to the next segment. So, we've established what the Torah says about this so-called Star of David. It was called the Star of Remphan, Molech and Moloch, and the Seal of Solomon, and all this stuff. And this is how we got here, or leads to here. Zionism. Zionists, they adopted this so-called Star of David as its symbol in 1897, and why it's incorporated into the Israel flag. Okay, and for those who may not know, Zionism in lay terms is those who committed all their resources and energy on making Israel a state. And in 1948, they made that happen. Within Harry Truman was then president. And of course, there's some controversy surrounding how and why Israel was recognized as a state, and why we have a lot of the conflict today between Israel and Palestine. And this man here, he is considered the founder of the modern day Zionist movement. Okay, he envisioned the founding of a future independent Jewish state in the 20th century. His name is Theodore Herzl. All right, and the Rothschilds can't leave them out. They incorporated the hexagram, or the so-called Star of David, into the flag of Israel, just like I was just saying, despite heavy opposition from the Jewish people, because remember that hexagram is related to occultism and demons and everything that's just anti-God. So why would you want that on a flag, unless you were aligned with deities like that? The Rothschilds put it there according to the Kabbalistic ideals, and that's why we have it today. All right, so I'm going to end right there. Of course, you guys know the drill. You can go back and pause anything you need to, but I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I enjoyed bringing it to you. So until next time, this is Dr. Ephraim signing off, saying Ahaya by Yeshem, Yeshua HaMashiach, Baruch Atah Adonai, for now and forever. Love you guys. Shalom, elect.